Welcome to Speech Sound Development for Parents and Carers by the Speech and Language Therapy Department, NHS Ayrshire and Arran. This presentation is split into two sessions. Please watch this one all the way through first and move on to session 2 when you are ready. The aim of this session is to give you a better understanding of speech sound development and the errors that children might make. Parents and carers are so important because you know your child best and you are with them most of the time, so you can affect the most change. Speech sound development is the process of acquiring adult speech sounds. Not every child will acquire the sounds at the exact same age, but generally they will follow the same developmental pattern. As you can see from this pyramid, speech sounds are at the very top, as they are the last thing to develop. Some children continue to develop their speech sounds up until about the age of 7. The other skills earlier in the pyramid are the building blocks children need to have in place first. Think about your child. Do you have any concerns in any of these other areas? Talking is tricky. Just like any skill, children might take longer to learn to use all their sounds. Have a practice and think about where these sounds are made in your mouth. What parts of your mouth are you using when you make each sound? Think about p, b, m, f, v, w with your lips. Think about the front of the tongue. T, d, n, s, z, l, and think about the back of your mouth and tongue. K, g, ng. Some sounds combine lip and tongue movements together. Which order do you think children develop these sounds? Think right back to early babble and what that might have sounded like. You can see from this table that vowel sounds tend to come first, along with simple sounds with the front of the mouth, like p, b, m, n, t, d, w. And looking at the rest of the table, you can see that the hardest sounds don't come sometimes till about the age of 7. These are sounds such as th, and j. So have a think about where your child might fall in this table and if their sounds are age appropriate. Think about your child. You might find it helpful to keep a note of the sounds your child finds tricky to say. Try listening when they are counting, playing, saying people's names, or asking for everyday things. This will help you identify which particular sounds are difficult for them to say. Common errors include making a k sound at the front and turning it into a t. For example, saying tat for cat or t for key. Other errors include turning a g into a d. For example, doggy is doddy or go is do. Another common error is producing a r sound as a w or l. For example, saying wed instead of red. Another common one is missing off one sound from a cluster of consonants, so saying something like pider instead of spider, or tears for stairs. It's also common to have difficulty with a f sound. A child might change that to a p or a b. For example, saying bish for fish, or pun for fun. S can also be very tricky. A child might produce this as a d. For example, saying done for sun or d for sea. Talking more about the common errors, firstly, let's talk about not using the long sounds. The long sounds include s, z, f, v, sh, and zh. So your child might use short sounds in place of some or all of these longer sounds. For example, instead of saying sad, they might say dad. Instead of saying for, they might say poor or bore. As mentioned, it is also common for children not to use the back sounds k and g. The child might say tea instead of key, or do instead of go. They might also make an error at the end of the word. So instead of saying book, they might say boot. Instead of saying dog, they might say dod. It is also common for children to sometimes miss the end sound of a word. The child sounds like they are missing the ending of the word. So they might say she instead of sheep. Often we are not sure why children find certain sounds difficult. Other things to consider when a child has speech sound difficulties include hearing. We would often recommend that the parent take the child to the GP to request a hearing assessment. If a child has had a lot of colds, they may have had glue ear. This can impact on how they would have heard the sounds at the time, which can affect speech sound development. There is often a lot of background noise in houses now, such as TVs or music, which can impact on opportunities to interact. This can also affect speech sound development. Phonological awareness is part of another presentation you might find helpful. Other things to consider are structural abnormalities such as missing teeth. Often when children are missing their front teeth especially, this can affect their s sound and they might make it as a dental s, otherwise known as a lisp. Often people will say children with speech sound difficulties are just being lazy, but this is not the case. Children do not tend to be lazy with their talking. Talking is tricky. Children need time to develop their skills. Speech sound development takes a lot of time, patience and support. Sometimes children who have used dummies a lot when they are little can make back sounds but have difficulty making the front sounds because the dummy has been obstructing the front of the mouth. Try to get rid of the dummy as soon as possible or limit use to when your child is upset or sleepy. Speech sound difficulties can have a lot of impact on children. This might include frustration that they are not being understood, losing their confidence, talking less, not wanting to talk in front of other adults or in front of other children, avoiding participating in activities that involve talking, struggling to make friends, and later on, possibly reading and writing difficulties. Think about the impact that any speech sound difficulties might be having on your child. That's the end of session 1. I hope you have found it helpful. Please move on to session 2 when you are ready. Thank you.